Welcome to Authors Allies, the podcast where we dive into the world of authors, books, and the art of storytelling. Join us for in-depth interviews with celebrated authors, insightful book reviews, and practical tips on marketing your literary masterpiece. After 20 years publishing magazines, I, your host, Rebecca Pachorik, am so thrilled to be able to work within my dream of promoting authors and their books. Whether you're a seasoned writer or just starting your journey, we've got something for you. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's explore the fascinating world of books together.
Hello, hello, friends. Welcome to the Books and Brew podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Pachorik, here with my monster coffee cup. And I'm also very excited to be here with my friend, Dr. Tracy Shroyer.
Hello.
Tracy, oh my goodness, she is a business professor. And you have to tell me if I get this wrong. She's a business professor, and she's a career coach, and she's an author. Tracy is one of the most amazing women I've ever met. Not only is she a total smarty pants, but she is a breast cancer warrior. She has been laid off. She has gone through the ringer in the last couple of years, and that doesn't even include COVID. So I am thrilled to have her here. And not only all of that, but Tracy is dear to me because she was the very first one to sign up for the Authors Allies Roundtable. Thank you for that, Tracy. I appreciated that,
Thank you.
that support there and helping me get things started. So give us a little intro if you would, because I know like that was just a very brief thing, but tell everyone a little bit more about you if you would for a minute.
Sure. Thank you. That was a great intro. Appreciate that. So yes, I'm Dr. Tracy Shroyer, and the headline I have in my LinkedIn is from corporate to classroom. So I did spend 27 years in the corporate environment, and I was a adjunct faculty member in the business management, like those types of classes, for about 9 or 10 years. And then when I was
Wow.
unexpectedly laid off in the fall of 2023, I ended up taking some time to reflect on what is it I really want to do? How do I want my life to look from here? And I ended up finding an opportunity to become an assistant professor of business. And I'm also the coordinator of business administration programs at the university also. And I started that in the fall of 24. So we're heading into our second semester here soon. Absolutely love it. Totally my dream job.
Oh,
When I was little, I wanted to be a teacher when I grew up, and
that's
this
great.
is, I had to go through a long and winding path to get here. Um, but along the way, when I was working on my PhD program, I studied layoffs, which is kind of odd thinking about the whole cycle
Yeah.
that I've gone through. And that kind of launched me, that research on layoffs launched me into my first book, which I know we're going to get more into my books that I've talked about. I know you have some copies. I have some behind me as well. And super excited to be on the podcast with you, Rebecca, and to talk about all these good things.
Me too. And wow, 27 years. That is a long time to be in a corporate background and then to get, laid off like, that's just crazy. Oh my goodness. Is that what inspired you to write that first book about the layoffs, like just going through your own experience then, or you got laid off actual after that, right? Like,
Yes, a lot later after that. It did help
wow.
inspire me to write my second book, though, or put
Okay.
together my second, which was a journal. But the first book, I actually had talked to a VP, a vice president in the company, um, while I was going through my PhD program. It was probably like 2012, 2011 that I had that conversation with him and learned how
Okay.
challenging it is for senior executives and managers who
Yeah.
deal with that side of layoffs. And so that inspired my research that I did. And then it was 2017 that I published Managing Layoffs, which is my book. And I talk about from a manager's perspective and some different themes that I found in my research. It wasn't until 2023 that I was impacted as an employee from a layoff. And a lot of that helped to inspire me to create the Ultimate Job Search Journal, which is a journal which I know you have even leveraged to find
Mhm.
some different gigs and things like that, to allow job seekers the opportunity to be able to track. Because one of the things that I had to do when I was looking for a job after being laid off is how do you track all of this stuff? And you're applying to a lot of different jobs, and how do you track the interviews and, all of the things involved in the networking and all of that. And so that really inspired me to put together that journal to help individuals who are out there as job seekers.
So now I know this isn't a question that we had on our list there, but I was just thinking about this. The fact that you were laid off yourself after you wrote the first book, when you look back now at your first book, do you feel like you wrote that in a way that is as helpful as you see it now from from the other end of it? When you look back at the book you wrote, do you think that it's still helpful for everyone in the right angles?
So I would say no, because the angle that I
Oh,
took in writing that was from a management perspective. So if you are a
okay.
manager and you're going through some of these different situations, like how do you handle that before, during, and after
Right.
layoffs? One of the things that I do have on my list, not for this year, but is to write a version or maybe even a whole new book related to layoffs in general and that full cycle that I experienced. So seeing the research from the manager's perspective and then also being involved from an employee's perspective and really looking at all of that together. So I don't know if I'm still taking some time thinking about how I want
Mm-hmm.
to approach that, because I have such a research mind that
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, could I do some additional research or pull up some additional research that's been done in the last like 10, 15 years and be able to leverage that and writing that next book. So that is definitely on the list, but it's not the next thing that I'm working on.
I love that though, because now that you have experienced it firsthand, while that's an unfortunate situation, of course, I think that's going to enable you to make the changes to that original book that will help those managers be more sympathetic to the person and persons that they're laying off. Because, like you said, so many people don't think about it from that aspect, from how those managers are handling those layoffs. And so I think that's really good in a way,
Yeah.
that you'll be able to go back and you have that firsthand research now, which is going to be really beneficial to both parties. So that will be interesting to see how that plays off. So you talked about your research. When you're doing your writing, do you have a particular routine or method? Like, do you, a lot of writers will sort of do an outline first and then they go back in and fill in the blanks. Do you typically like to do it that way, or do you sort of know what the general theme is and then you just kind of start writing?
So I would say I would not be able to grab a blank piece of paper and just start writing like stream of
Okay,
consciousness. Like that's
sure.
not for me, it doesn't work for me. May work for other people. I definitely need to have that outline. And what's interesting, and you bringing this up, is I have put together a couple different outlines for like what another book could look like. And
Okay,
thought, okay, I have that on a piece of paper. And even for me going all through school and everything, I always had the outline and then I could plug and play what I felt like working on at the time,
sure.
and put that in and then make edits and things like that. But that was most helpful for me to have that framework and figure that out because I felt like I had a solid foundation to be able
Okay.
to start to put things in from there.
That makes sense. And I mean, knowing that you have such an educational background, you would definitely, it makes sense that you'd be very scientific in writing your
Mhm.
books. When you know what that outline is, do you typically write it on paper and then put it in the computer? Do you like voice text? What kind of system do you have in that regard?
That's interesting that you say that. So I can no longer really write on paper so well.
Okay.
Um, so that and the thoughts come faster than the hand will go.
Mm-hmm.
So
Me
typically
too.
it's typing out and then making
Okay.
edits later or making edits as I go. The one thing that I have started to do in the last year or two for other things is do voice and speak.
Okay.
And so that is definitely an idea as I think about, going into my future writing, like being able to do that and then transcribe it and then edit it and change it. I think that would be really helpful because a lot of it comes so quickly that it's
Right.
really hard to capture as quickly. Yeah.
Well, and I know a lot of authors have these thoughts when they're driving or walking,
Yes.
and it's not like you can just stop and write that down. And so it's really helpful to be able to have that notes feature on your phone to, get those thoughts down, because I don't know about you, but my brain works in such a way that I'll forget, like,
Yes.
menopause, fun times, I forget what's going on. And I don't want to forget if it's really good, and
Right.
then lately you're
Right.
like, oh, what was I thinking? And so I think the voice is just going to get more and more important, that voice
Mhm.
texting, as we go along. I know a lot of authors are even doing, like, they'll do chapters completely out of order or thought sequences out of order, and then you can piece it all together later. So it's really, I think, kind of just important to decide how your mind works, right? So everybody's
Yes.
mind works a little differently. And with you being a doctor and having that scientific method, you may work completely differently than a creative, artistic
Yep.
person. And so whatever works best for you, that's going to be the way that you need to do it. Um,
Right.
Looking at your books, like, I can see where even the two books you did are different. Just now that I know you a little bit, reading
Hmm.
your first book and listening to it, I mean, not being a manager, for me, that was very different type of material for me to listen
Hmm.
to and go through. And then when I purchased your journal, I wanted to get that one, of course, to support you, but also because I thought it would be great for me to track the networking and the like, because even as a freelance worker, I am consistently applying for all these different jobs, and it is so hard to track all that stuff, right? Like you
Right.
said. But going through here was fun because I saw, first off, your cover, which was really creative. And then what I loved in here is that you added, and I thought this was so fun, and yet I may have to ask for an answer sheet. You added some fun stuff, like there's a little word search. I saw some coloring pages in here.
Yes.
So, what was your thinking in adding those to the job search? I mean, I know what I thought when I was looking at, but what were you thinking in adding those into, what could be kind of a serious thing
Yeah,
here?
definitely. So the word search should be at the very back. They should have the answers in there for you.
Oh, yay. See, I
So take
haven't
a look.
gotten that far.
So the last couple pages, they should have that in there. But for me, so my first book, I would say, was, although it wasn't like entirely academic in the way I wrote it, like it was a more helpful guide for managers. I don't know that there was a ton of creativity in it. And
Right.
one thing I knew from the audience for the job seekers using that Ultimate Job Search Journal is it's cumbersome, it's tedious, it's overwhelming, and it's like, where can you take a little break from that? And I know
Yes.
several other authors have been leveraging that, and I learned from our friend Jess Fetter and you as
Mhm.
well about putting in that fun in there and mixing it in with some of the seriousness. And so it allows your mind to really take that break and go back and forth. And some people may use it, some may not, but it's just something to help kind of break up the monotony of, writing in all your information about the jobs that you apply for, the people that you meet.
Sure. And yeah, like you said, that just makes it a little more fun. And it is really stressful. When you're
Yeah.
looking for a job, you have so many emotions, and particularly if you've been laid off, depending on the situation for the why of the job search, the emotions are going to be all over the board. And so I thought that was really fun. I also liked like, you had a couple of pages had tips. So it wasn't just journal, like you had some good tips listed in there. Like, you'll probably see, I'm such a nerd. I put little tabs
I
on
love it.
mine. I know if you're just listening, you won't see my tabs. So you may have to look at the YouTube for that. But I put some tabs on there. And then you have this whole section in the back on interview prep tips and a couple of other pages like that. What do you think when people are looking for their job search? What do you think is the most overlooked aspect of that search that you addressed in the journal? Because I know I picked up a few new things, and being
Mhm.
54, I've looked for jobs several times. So,
Oh, that is a really hard question. I did put a lot of those tips in there because those are some quick and easy things that people, especially if they're part of the career development club on Facebook or LinkedIn, like they can access those things over time or, in bulk
Okay.
in there. Um, I don't know that there's really one thing that stands out over the other.
Okay.
I know in the job search, one of the things that I talk about in there is, I believe, the LinkedIn profile and some of the
Yes.
things to think about and a checklist for making sure what you have in LinkedIn. So I would recommend to anybody who's looking for a job, go in there. You don't have to spend hours cleaning up your profile or creating a profile, but it's like there's a few key things that you have in your profile so that when somebody is looking at who applied for these jobs, and of course, this is particular to certain industries. So there's some industries that, may not be as prevalent on LinkedIn, but that people can easily find you. And it's almost like your business card for them to see, okay, here's
Gotcha.
who this person
Okay.
is. It brings a realness and authenticity to you, seeing your picture on your profile, seeing a couple
Mm,
things in your profile. But just having that for people to see, I think is really important. I think a lot of people overlook it. They're so focused on their resume, which is important as well. But it's like your
sure.
resume is going to help get you in the door. But what are you doing on LinkedIn? Do you have that profile? Are you consistent on that application that people are seeing, who you are on a regular basis in there?
I love that. And I know that in your free Facebook group, what's the name of it again? And I'll put the
It
link in the show notes too.
Sure, it's Career Development Club.
Career Development Club. Okay. So I know that you've done a few free webinars in there, free that, you do some great videos and stuff that are really helpful for people and those checklists. So definitely good because someone who has not been in the job market in a while, I have recently decided that I thought it would be perfect for me to get just maybe like a 5 hour a week part-time job type of a thing.
Mhm.
And I haven't done my resume in over 15 years. 15 years because as a business owner, people just go and they look at your website. They go and they looked at LinkedIn, right? And so
Yep.
having a resume that is up to date, I think this is something that I get to do annually from now on. I feel like you should
Mhm.
always have an up to date resume. And you can start by downloading that from LinkedIn, even. So you've done a great job, I think, particularly in your group with LinkedIn. I know that's
Mhm.
the number one place, right, for people to look for a job. And
Right.
so I think that's really good to do. Um, in writing your book, it is, it's not fiction, right? So you're writing about, sadly, right? We all wish we could
Hmm.
say getting laid off was fiction. But,
Right.
you're writing about professional topics. Your
Hmm.
job search journal, I know you're working on some research papers this year. What advice could you offer to other authors that are maybe looking to write their books to be more of a professional topic, more of a resume book? A lot of authors write a book today that basically becomes a resume for them. So,
Hmm.
what kind of advice might you offer those people?
So I would say as you're writing, or I would start to write some of it and then give it to a few people to see like, hey, does this kind of sound interesting to you? Or, is the way that it's written. I had an editor that looked through and she had been laid off. So
Oh,
she was able to connect a little bit more even to it.
sure.
One of the things that I tried to do, I've read so many boring professional development, professional help books.
Okay.
And so it was like, how do we structure this in a way that it's not like those,
Yeah.
that somebody's going to read a few pages and then put it down. And so for me, it was thinking of the structure of it. So my structure for the book is different than some others. So I actually I tell a story for each of the chapters and give a scenario that somebody was in related to the theme of that chapter. And then I give some reflection questions so people can connect it to their own experience. And then there's also, I'm trying to think, there was one other thing in it. Let me grab my copy. It's been a while since I've gone back and looked at it. Oh,
I
tips
know,
and
me
best
too.
practices. So for that theme, I give 3 tips or best practices that align to that theme. And those are all also at the very end of the book. And I also have some recommended reading in the back too. So the way that it's laid out, it's not going to take somebody a long time to go through and read it. They don't have to read it from front to back. They could even figure out like, is there a certain theme I want to focus on or I want to look
Oh,
at?
okay.
And kind of go around in that. And the scenarios are a couple pages at most. It's a very thin book for those of
Yeah.
you that are on the video. So I would recommend that for other people writing books similar, like a professional kind of topic, is getting feedback, getting insight. I did have a few people reading it or reading a chapter or two along the way to make sure that I was hitting the mark and that it was of interest versus just kind of like I may not. And maybe
Right.
that's just me, and maybe I do have a tad of like the ADD, ADHD, but reading a book from front to back is very challenging for me. So this morning I was even reading through a textbook about some human resources things, and I'm like, these people did an awesome job. Like I can confidently tell my students, like, take your time, read this. Like it tells you what you need to know versus, there's like 60 pages of who knows what you're going to get out of this. So.
Right. Right. There's nothing like reading a book and going, how did that help me?
Right, right.
You don't want to get to the end and think that. And I think too, just thinking about it from a reading standpoint, I read a lot of personal development type books. And a couple of things that I liked about your specific printed version of this is you have plenty of room for people to take notes. There are many professional development books that I get both on Audible or from the library, and then I order a hard copy so that I can go back and look at it. And I know you've got a couple of actual like blank pages, like you've got some space
Yep.
in there, and then you have even some line pages. And I think for books like this, where like you said, you don't necessarily need to read it in order, so I think that's also helpful when a person is writing a book that's like a resume style book for them. And the space, I think the white space is really important, and asking those questions. I love when I read a personal development book and then they give you action steps, giving you those action steps, giving you those development questions. That's why you picked
Mhm.
up the book, right?
Right,
So
right.
that was the whole point of it. I don't like when I'm reading a book like that and it's just a giant sales pitch.
Yes,
So
yes,
it can't be just, come spend money with me. You have to give me some action items as well, and if I want to spend money with you, that's a bonus, right? But I love that. So I think that's really good, the way that you did that. In publishing a book like that, in publishing a what I'm calling a resume book, did that help your career? Like, how do you think it helps your corporate career, your professor's career, to be able to say that you're a published author? How do you think that helps you in your career?
I definitely think it is helpful. Well, one thing that was interesting is publishing this while I was in my corporate role, knowing that these things could go on even in that organization.
Sure.
My manager at the time was so proud of me that she bought everybody on the team a
Aw.
copy. It was like around Christmas time, bought everybody on a team a
Yeah.
copy and had it shipped to them. And people were opening up their Christmas package and they're like, why are you giving me a book about layoffs? Like they were a little concerned. And
Oh,
she was like, no, it's Tracy wrote this book. So I wanted to share
oh
that
my
with you.
gosh.
Wanted to, just share how
Yeah.
proud she was of me. Um,
Aw.
so I'm trying to think of, I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And then, like, does it also, I mean, I assume when you do your resume, like you've written on there that you're a published author now, right? So
Yes.
I feel like it adds to your credibility.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Yep.
that's why a lot of people do it. So,
Yeah.
um, I know that, like I said, you're in the Authors Ally, so I have to do a little plug for that. So, what kinds of things have you found marketing wise, since we want to talk about authors marketing their books? What
Yes.
kinds of things have you done? And do you have any questions on how any of that would work? Like, have you found something specific to be helpful in marketing your books? Is there anything you can give someone a tip for on things
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah, one thing I know that has really been helpful for me in the Authors Allies group is I think it was one of the first or second maybe meetings with the group where you shared with us some templates and ideas of how to create. It was like our one sheet for our book. I can't remember what
Yes.
the name
The
was
one
it. And
sheet
then
bio.
Yes, the one sheet bio. And then we had our marketing package
Hmm.
that we could put together. I know I need to update that. Even I don't know if I have one for the Ultimate Job Search Journal that I
Uh-oh.
included that in there. So I want to make sure that I update that and keep
Yes.
that fresh. Um, and with the marketing, the one thing that I struggle with sometimes, and I feel like you help with in the accountability for Authors Allies, is working a full-time job now. I'm back in a
Hmm.
full-time job and trying to figure out how do I continue to market my books because I feel like we do it once and we feel like everybody and their brother would see it. But what, what tips might you have for people, just from the work that you've done with other authors on how to market the books that they have, how to be consistent, things like that?
Well, it's especially important to get your platform out there. Building your platform as an author is important for a lot of reasons, but a lot of authors that are independently published or self-published, they have dreams of someday being picked up by a big publisher or having, their book turned into a movie, things like that. The first thing that any other large publisher is going to look at is your platform. And many people are very overwhelmed by that. And so if you have a full-time job and you are trying to continuously market those books, because you're right, so many people go, oh, I'm going to launch my book, and then they just think, you put it on Amazon and they will come, and that's just not the way that it works. I would start with one social media platform, whichever one you like the best. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, we want to find your audience. That is true. However, just getting yourself comfortable on one platform and all the things that it can do, that's where you want to start. And then email. Social media is rented ground. It's rented ground. I say that all the time, I know, but you don't own it. So at any time, even our good friends at LinkedIn could just go poof. We just don't know, right? And
Right.
so you really need to have that email list. So you're going to want to offer something probably in exchange for that, whether it's a little checklist or even just I know a lot of authors do a really fun thing where they will do a Spotify list or something like that of the
Oh,
book,
that's cool.
where you've
Yeah.
got all the songs that go with the book, right? And so offer something, get them on your email list. And you don't need to make it hard. People go, oh, I don't want to email. You could just send one email a month if you have to. And it can just be
Right.
one of your social posts. But get that email list going and get really comfortable with one social media platform, and then we can grow from there. I'm very big on step by step. Like that's the
Hmm.
whole point of the Authors Allies Roundtable, is to build your marketing suite slowly, one step at a time, while you still have a life outside of that. And so it can be really overwhelming, but building it one step at a time, I think that's just really important. And I would start with the email and one platform on social media.
Yeah, and I think it may sound overwhelming if somebody's listening and wants to be an author or is an author about the email side of it, but there are so many free tools that you can
Oh my gosh,
use
yeah.
to start to build your email list. And like Rebecca said, once a month, like you could push
Mhm.
something out. There was something else I was working with you on and talking about, what were you talking about? Um, like creating a blog or something like that. And I said, I feel like I have to do it every week. And you're like, 2 times a month. Like, let's
Yeah.
not overwhelm ourselves. So having that support and that accountability through the Authors Allies program has been invaluable for me, for sure.
Oh, yay. I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah. And I only do my blog once a month. I do a blog at the beginning of the month. And then I just love to repurpose content. Like that's a big thing for me. And I think that's really helpful for anyone who is starting to feel overwhelmed, right? So I do a blog at the beginning of the month, and then I take the pieces from that blog, and that creates my content for the entire month. So it makes it so
It's
easy.
perfect.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just so easy to do. And then what a lot of authors will do, that I know I've suggested to a couple of the authors in the membership, do this because they felt that way, oh no, I
Hmm.
don't know what to email, right?
Yeah.
Besides having a lot of content that I provide for you guys to possibly use, I had suggested to her to just take her favorite email, or I mean her favorite social media post. She has no troubles getting on social media. A lot of people are fine with that, right? Like you've been doing it a
Yep.
while now. But she just took a couple social media posts and emailed them out. That's what a lot of people do. And it works
Yep.
fine because when you think about it, social media is still only shown to a very small percentage of the people that follow you. So it's highly likely they didn't see that post. And I love myself and you, but none of us are that important that they're just going to remember our one little post we did.
Right.
It's not like they're necessarily seeing double information. So just
Yeah.
take your favorite social media post from the month and email that out. That is even a thing. It doesn't
Right.
have to be complicated. I think the
Right.
easier we can keep all of this, the more sane we are, the more likely we are to be consistent, because that consistency is a key, and our readers want to know us as people. They know
Yes.
they're busy too. They're overwhelmed too. They got laid off somewhere in their life. Pretty much everyone loses a job somewhere in their life, right? And so we've all been there. And so I think just keeping it easy and
Yeah.
relatable,
Yeah.
I think that's really,
Yep.
really the key, and that consistency. So are you putting out, like, what kind of information will people find on your group right now? Like, are you putting out information consistently? Will they find, videos? What's going to be kind of the way for people to find you these days?
So I was pushing myself and overwhelming myself to put out content
Yeah.
almost every day or every couple
Wow.
days. And so I've kind of pulled back on that because I have a lot to focus on, outside of the
Sure.
social media. And so I typically go in there, I want to say maybe once a week or so and post
Okay.
something. I have so many different guides in there. So when people join the group, I might direct them to a guide or tag them in a guide to help them.
Oh, that's
I'm
good.
actually working on a special project as part of my career coaching. I'm
Nice.
probably going to be launching it like late February, I think. So I don't want to spill the beans too much, but if you're
Okay.
listening and you've been laid off or you know somebody who's been laid off, it's going to be a program and an opportunity to help them immensely.
Awesome. I
Yeah.
love that. Well, I'm going to have in the show notes, if you do you have something that you are giving away to people that sign up for your email list? Is there a checklist or anything that people would be able to get now, or is the best way for them to get into your world through that group?
I would say to join in the group because once you join in
Okay.
the group, you can be added to the email list, and the
Okay.
group has more free information than probably I should have in there
Right.
that they can access. So
Okay.
any of those kind of freebies that I've given away from joining my email list, I house in that group. And the group is
Perfect.
actually it's the same in Facebook and in LinkedIn.
Oh,
So
okay. So you've
however
got both.
people yeah,
Okay.
however people prefer to do it, because there's a lot of people our age that prefer not to be on Facebook
Sure.
anymore. So that's why I started doing duplicate on LinkedIn, and then they can follow and gather the insight there too.
I love that. I love that. That's
Yeah,
really helpful. And then the thing that's coming out in February, if you let me know, I will email and post about that too. So
absolutely.
once they get in your group and they get in your world on either LinkedIn or Facebook, will you be publishing information about that special program in there? Do you try to keep people
Yes.
up to date in the groups in case they're not on your email list, or?
Yes, I will
Okay.
definitely do that. Yep. Yep.
And I think you have a podcast too, as
Mhm.
well. And so following your podcast is another good way to get a lot of great tips,
Yes,
right?
yes. I just
Get a lot of tips from there.
rebranded it a few months ago or so. So it's called
Yeah.
Career Dev, Dev
Okay.
for development.
Okay.
And right now I'm still working my way through the alphabet, the ABCs of career
Love
development.
it.
Sprinkle in a couple different episodes. But a lot of that is for me, it's a stream of thought as I, read articles or read parts of books or work on something for teaching and things come to mind and I want to share that with individuals and I end up, doing the audio recording for those. Um, yeah. So feel free to follow on most platforms, Career Dev, that podcast.
I love it. I love it. And like I said, I'll put
Yeah.
all that information in the show notes. So anything you want to share with our audience, just let me know and we'll put all that down there. But I have a really important question I have to ask you before we end up closing up. So,
Okay.
you know, is books and brew. And,
Yes.
my cup is very large. If you're writing or you're reading, what's likely to be in your cup?
So for me, it has to be caffeine,
Okay,
but I
yes.
don't do coffee. So I actually even have this morning here. I do this
I
Dr.
love it.
Zevia.
Okay,
I was hooked on Coke Zero, but this is much better, like the
really?
sugar, whatever's in
Okay.
it. So yeah, definitely the caffeine to get you going.
Is that for reading and writing, or do you move to wine or something later?
No, no, reading and writing for sure.
Reading and writing. Going to go with that caffeine. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty much me too. I would have the caffeine in the morning, but I can't drink caffeine anytime past noon or I can't sleep. So then I just switch to my giant water bottle.
Okay.
I cannot sleep. If I have caffeine too late, I know
Yeah.
it's crazy. I think it's an old lady thing. I used to be able to drink Mountain Dew and then go right to bed.
Oh, I feel like I did that in high school all the time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, in
Yeah.
college. Oh my gosh, yeah, so much. So much so in college, right? Like, oh,
Yes.
but I can't
Yes.
do it now. I can't
Yeah.
do it.
One thing I
Caffeine
do
and
want
then the
to
water.
One thing I
Yeah,
do want to share before we go
of
is I
course.
just want to acknowledge you and thank you for your support and
Aw.
being part of the Authors Allies program. I know with coming into a full-time job again, I haven't been able to be as present as I had been in the past and the group and on calls and things like that. But the information that you are helping people with, and I know I'm not the only one, other authors have challenges and get really overwhelmed. So I want to thank you for your support there. Also, I
Aw,
know we're sharing this on your and my podcast, and I just wanted you to plug a little bit more on Authors Allies and let people know like what are some
sure.
of the things that you offer in the group and that can help people because I think that could be really valuable to a lot of our listeners.
Perfect. I'd love to. I mean, of course, who doesn't want to talk about their stuff, right?
Right.
Well, I'm really excited because I've been reading since I was like 4 or 5 years old. I started reading in kindergarten, maybe even pre-K. And I wanted to be a teacher as well while I was growing up. And then I actually taught a preschool CCD class in high school and realized that if I were a teacher, I would never want to be a parent. It was just too much. It was too much kid time for
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
But I always was a reader and a writer, and hence, doing the magazines and things for all these years. And so I wanted to really, in starting Authors Allies, I wanted to give back to all of those authors because they've provided me with so much joy over my life, right? And so it was really big for me. And I decided to mostly go to target. I mean, I'll take any authors, of course, that want to be within the group, but for the majority, it's female independent authors or authors that have gone with hybrid publishers. I do have a couple of people that have had some traditionally published books in there because I think a lot of people just have this perception that a traditional publisher is going to do it all, and they don't either. So you always have to be marketing your book. But
Yeah.
what I like is that we've got this 10-step program, right? Basically, I have a 10-step approach. I've written an ebook that we can put in the notes too. There's a free ebook on the 10 steps to your ultimate book marketing plan. And the Authors Allies Roundtable is based on that, on step by step doing your promotions, building on your marketing suite so that you aren't as overwhelmed, right?
Mhm.
And then having that community. We have shared some great ideas in those meetings and we are recording them. So even if you can't make it, you can always pop in and listen. But the authors have shared some great ideas amongst themselves for
Yes.
doing bundles and things like that. And so the plan is that basically right now, and we're kind of with everyone who had joined last year, we've got about 20 members right now, I think. I want to keep it small. I don't really want to go over 100 members for the roundtable itself because I like that. I like the community of being able to get on a Zoom call or a Google Meets and we can all chat about what's
Mhm.
working, what's not working. And so the first couple weeks of the month, we have like I guess I would call it a training call where I'm kind of training you on some things. The third week, we're doing something that I think is really helpful, which is the planning for the next month. And I provide social media and email, either prompts, templates, some sort of information that you could take and basically use for your email, your social media for the following month. Because again, I know most of you have full-time jobs in addition to your authoring, right? And then
Right.
that last week, and we're doing the last week on Saturday mornings now, where we have a Q&A and kind of an open discussion. And then I'm hoping to put some more co-working sessions in. I tried a few of those towards the end of the year last year, but last quarter is so busy for everyone.
Right.
But I'm hoping to add a few more co-working sessions and writing sprints. And then
I
we
like
have
that.
that Telegram accountability channel, which, like you mentioned,
Yes.
that's really helpful. And that's really helpful for me. You guys are keeping me accountable too, like if I say I'm going to do something, I don't want to have to report back that I didn't do it, right?
Right, right. Yeah, the accountability is strong there. And even for me too, if I don't answer something in there, it's the reminder that pops up to
Yeah.
me like, hey, have you been working on your stuff? Have you been
Yes.
doing what you were going to do? And it's so easy to get lost in that with everything
Mm-hmm.
else that we have going on in life. So it's just that reminder to, hey, check back in
Oh
on
my
this.
gosh,
And
yeah.
yeah.
And I'm not sure you're a part of this because I know you're so busy already, but a lot of people don't realize we also have a Book Bites business book club. Say that fast a few times. But we have a book club that is on Telegram as well, and that's free for anyone to join. And we are reading one professional book per month. And sometimes we've slid a couple extras in there because a lot of us are big readers. And we just discuss on Telegram. And then if everyone has time, we actually do book bites, the idea being that it's over lunch or dinner and we chat
Oh,
about the
okay.
book. And so if anyone wants to join that as well, they're welcome to. And they can just email me info@authorsallies.com.
Okay.
And they can just email me and I'm happy to add them to the Telegram discussion for that. This month, well, I don't know when this is going to run, but January of 2025, we are doing the Let Them book with Mel Robbins.
Okay.
And that has been just
It's
life
very
changing.
popular.
Oh my goodness. I was just introduced to her last year. I had not listened to any of her stuff. And I binged a bunch of her podcasts last year. And now after reading this book, I need to go read her other books. It's really good. But we choose different books each month and then discuss and talk about what kind of takeaways we have and things like that. So
I like that. I like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's been fun. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you being on the podcast and being a member and all the fun co-working sessions we've gotten to do. I think the in-person stuff and even just the online co-working is just really beneficial for entrepreneurs because it's such a potentially a lonely
Yes.
job, right?
You need that motivation for sure. And you have so much more momentum when you're involved with
Mm-hmm.
co-working, with working with others, being in others' groups and things like that to keep going and stay strong in what you're doing for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Is there anything else that you think we should?
You know what? The one thing I was wondering, just as we were
Yeah.
talking, is because you have talked to so many authors and worked with so many authors, is there one or two things that you feel like a lot of authors get hung up on that you have been able to help them release or give them a tip or two to kind of move on and move forward?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that they worry about, in trying to sell those books. But a couple of things that I think, the email and the social media, of course, keeping it simple, right? Trying not to overwhelm yourself is good. But the other thing too is you can get a lot of free publicity out there. A lot of authors are worried that they have to spend money when they've already, spent money to do their book. And there's a lot of stuff that you can do for free. So in the membership and in some of my blogs, like I have a blog with a lot of free information and freebies like you as well. Promo stacking. There are a lot of promo stacks that you can do that don't cost you money or cost you very little. And believe it or not, I have authors that we have started ads on Facebook or Amazon as little as $1 a day. And most people can afford $1 a day for
Right,
an ad. And so don't get hung up freaking yourself out worrying so much about the cost before you get the information because a lot of times it's not as bad as you think
right,
and a lot of people don't realize that like there's a lot you can do and just being on a podcast. I mean, we don't charge each other to be guests on a podcast,
right.
and being on a podcast, a lot of my authors have found their Amazon sales spike just after being on a podcast. And so
Nice.
and it doesn't cost anything, so it takes your time, and that's why it's really important to have a plan and that step by step so you don't overwhelm yourself. But, don't write anything off unless you get the information. And that's really been helpful, I think, for a lot of people to realize.
Okay. And I saw recently, even locally for me, that the library is doing like
Mm-hmm.
local authors and having them
Yes.
come and maybe speak or read, pieces of their book and maybe sign copies or something like that. So, you're not getting necessarily paid for that. People might buy your book. You get the opportunity to get your name out there and your book out there. Those are great things to think about too.
They are great. And one thing too, like I actually have met a lady who is a librarian and an author, and she's from Ohio. So, since we're in Ohio, I try to really help and love on Ohio authors. And she wrote a book about getting your book into the libraries. And actually, that's a good
Oh,
book to possibly put into our notes too, because
okay.
she's done a great job of telling you how to do it from the librarian standpoint, because a lot of authors just don't know how to make that happen or
Right.
what the librarians are looking for. And so she has provided some great tips for that. And one thing that I know the libraries are looking for is they want you to be able to give value of some sort. So just asking a library can I come in and host a book signing? No, because that's you clearly wanting money.
Right.
Are you willing to donate some books to the library? Are you willing to do that reading out loud or have a Q&A? If you're a children's author, is there
Hmm.
something that you can do, or maybe give them some coloring pages to go with your book? So
Right.
they're looking for something that can help them with their programming, not just, let me set up a table and sell my books. And
Right.
so Carrie's book is really helpful for that as well.
Nice.
And like I said, we'll pop that into the show notes, give her a little plug there. It's really helpful. Yeah,
Nice.
getting into the libraries is great. And bookstores will do that too. Barnes and Noble is actually known to work with local authors quite a bit if your book is
Oh,
not just on Amazon. So the
right.
bookstores typically won't order, books from
Yep.
Amazon for you. So if your book is widely distributed and
Uh-huh.
Barnes and Noble is carrying your book, a lot of them are willing to have an author signing, and they will just set you up for an author signing. So they're excited to be able to offer that to authors as just a public relations thing. And that's wonderful. And they don't charge for that either.
Yeah. And I know one of the things in the Authors Allies group that we've talked about in the past is different places to be able to publish your book or to allow people to buy your book. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've gotten some great tips from you and others in the group on what different organizations or, things that I can use to get my book out to. So,
Oh yeah, it can be really helpful. And we're going to do an entire month later this year on publishing. Do you go wide? Do you just go on Amazon? Do you do Audible? What types of books to do? And so each month we have sort of a different theme, and that's going to be one of the themes this year. Is we're going to be
okay.
talking about that. We're going to do a month on ads, because
Oh, that's good.
Amazon ads and Facebook ads are really important for your sales if you want to become a career author at some point.
Right.
And it's one of those overwhelming things, right? So
Yep.
yeah, it's pretty fun. It's pretty
Awesome.
fun. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on today and for having me. Like this is fun having like a little dual conversation here.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stay tuned for more, friends. Between Tracy and I, we've both got podcasts and groups and pages, and there's just a lot of great information out there. And we are happy to help you out with your authoring career and your job search. And we just got a lot going on. So make sure you take a look at the notes, and really you can hook up with us easily. And we're happy to help you out.
Yeah. Thank you. And we'll catch you all on the next episode.
Tired of drowning in marketing tasks? Stressed about book launches and social media? You're not alone. The Authors Allies RoundTable Done With You marketing membership is your escape. Join a community of authors who understand. Learn proven strategies for creating captivating media kits, running successful ad campaigns, and hosting unforgettable book launches. Weekly meetings, also recorded for your convenience, cover everything from email, marketing, and social media mastery to in-person event planning. Plus, access a treasure trove of worksheets, templates, and resources designed to simplify your marketing efforts. Stop trading precious writing time for marketing madness. The Authors Allies Roundtable is your path to stress-free, profitable writing. Visit www.authorsallies.com to learn more and join today.
That's all for this episode of Authors Allies. We hope you enjoyed our exploration of the literary world. Be sure to stay tuned for our next episode where we'll have more fascinating interviews, book reviews, and marketing tips. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Leave us a review and share us with a friend. To get your free copy of our ebook, 10 Steps to Your Ultimate Book Marketing Plan, be sure to head over to our show notes. Until next time, happy reading and writing.